Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Horse's Mouth Live. My name is Ellen Rogin, and as always, I have amazing guests to bring you really important information to help you in every area of your life, especially your business. And our guest today, Kathi Balasek, I found on LinkedIn. I saw an article she posted about the language of grief. And I was thinking this would be such an important topic for our show, for the Extraordinary Advisor show. And it's because we all at times have to be there for people in our lives who've gone through a loss. And as a financial advisor, invariably you will. And I know that you want to know how to speak to your clients or their families in the most compassionate, empathetic way. And I know for me, whether it was when I had my practice or throughout life, I know I just want to make sure I'm saying things that are supportive and not saying things that are the opposite of that. So when I saw Kathi's post on LinkedIn, I reached out and said, hey, I would love to get to know what you're up to and have you as a guest on our show. So before I bring Kathi on officially, I want to give you her background. Kathi Balasek is a grief communication consultant. She's a university lecturer, speaker, podcast host who's on a mission to cultivate a grief literate culture. And this is through improving the way that people talk about loss, and especially advisors with their clients. We were talking before the show started about the ability to impact so many people when people are really grief language literate, which I would say probably 99.9% of people are not. She teaches at California State University College of Communication and Education. She's a widow advocate, and she inspires others to serve this vulnerable and growing population in an authentic yet professional way. So Kathi, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Ellen. It is such a privilege to come on your show and to give some help and support where I can and, impact the lives of others. So I really look forward to this interview.
Well, I know we're going to get into some really tactical strategies and suggestions that you have, Kathi, but I thought it would be helpful if you share a little bit about how you got into this work.
Excellent. So I experienced widowhood several years ago. And in my 30s, I found myself alone raising 5 children. One day my husband came home with a brain tumor. I was 4 months pregnant with our last child, and life changed forever for us. And so many things in my life and in my growth in the last decade have been financial. And so the tools and strategies and the growth moving forward in widowhood is so linked to the people who help you manage all the things financial. And so, I went back to school after my husband died, and I started teaching at the university. And since then, I've raised those 5 kids. They've all have college degrees, and I had the luxury of having life insurance and a pension and those types of things in place, and a wonderful advisor that was my decision partner along the way. So I knew at some point in my life and career that it was time to pay it forward. And, there's a lot of things I can do and could do and that I'm passionate about, but really helping advisors and helping everybody with the language of loss is my purpose.
When you say the language of loss or grief literacy communication, will you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that, Kathi?
Yes. It's a relatively new term, and I went into full research mode when I knew I wanted to do this. Basically, grief literacy is normalizing the conversations and our responses around grief and loss, because it's very awkward, disjointed, and it's actually the absence of those grief literacy communication skills that causes the disconnect with people. And so, we're all going to experience death and loss. And it's this universal experience, but it's not a universal language. And many people shy away from it because you have to face your own mortality. If it could happen to somebody like me, it could happen to anybody. And it makes people very awkward. Another couple key pieces of grief literacy that's helpful when you're an advisor is to understand a few of the grief terms. You don't have to be a grief psychologist, but to understand, anticipatory grief. If your clients have been diagnosed with an illness, they're experiencing a lot of signs and symptoms, anticipating this loss. And so having an awareness of some of these things can help you with connecting with clients. Grief literacy also encompasses some unconscious bias that we bring to the table, because somewhere in the world, if somebody lived a wonderful life, long life, that's a hierarchy before somebody who died young. And we have these different types of almost values of different types of deaths, whether if it was a suicide or an overdose or cancer. And really, death is death. And from the client's perspective, they lost somebody very near and dear. And so as an advisor, we want to be aware of our unconscious bias in grief so that we can not bring any of that to the conversation, because it is such an empathetic action. And we do want to put ourselves in their shoes, and that those shoes are very painful. So grief literacy, number one, is to just become aware of your grief responses and to start getting comfortable with talking about death and loss, because we avoid it. If I want to clear a room, all I have to do is say I'm a widow, and nobody wants to be around me. So,
especially a widow with 5 children.
Oh, right. Yes, they scram.
So interesting when you're saying when someone's dealing with a terminal health issue, there's a grieving process too. And I don't think I would have put this in the same category, but it so makes sense. So let's start with that. What are some recommendations, either things advisors could say or to be sensitive to if they're dealing with someone who has terminal illness or someone close to them does?
Okay. Excellent question, Ellen. So first thing is we want to acknowledge it. Don't wait. If they're your client, if they're your friend, whomever, you call. Even if you get voicemail, you call and you leave a message and you express that you know this, you're here to support them, use the name of the person in the conversation, and that you're truly thinking about this in times of need. Another option, write them a card. There is nothing, people say this is old school. I don't buy it. There is nothing says care when you just write a couple sentences of how you've thought about this family. You are here to support, you're here to offer anything they need, and you just put it in the mail. They might not reach out to you right away, but it's there and you did something. So much of our being stuck is we talk ourselves out of oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And so then we do nothing. And it's just those simple acts of acknowledging and reaching out, meeting them right where they are. You don't need to solve anything, fix anything, just be there to listen.
That makes so much sense. Thinking about of someone running their practice and knowing that if it hasn't already happened, which I'm sure it has, it will, where a client will pass away, someone close to them will pass away. What are some things that advisors can do, whether it's for themselves or their team, to set things up or to do things ahead of time to prepare for this inevitable situation?
Okay, so I believe that preparedness is the key to success in almost anything in life. And, the curriculum that I've written, I call it the PACE curriculum, because we have to pace ourselves when we're dealing with clients, bereaved clients. And the P is preparedness, because you have the ability. I mean, we know how this movie ends. We are all going to die. Our clients are going to die. All of we know how it's going to end. So let's set it up. Number one, currently get to know every single one of your clients. And there needs to be a rapport and a relationship with all of them, whether they meet with you often, whether they don't. You can't start from scratch from this. And, widowhood, it is a gender neutral term. However, it leans so far female, sadly, 4-1, that many of your women clients are the ones you really need to prepare. You need to get to know them more than just the wife of your client. And starting and having conversational points. When you fill out a client form, the client fills it all out, okay? But as an advisor, you could create your own notes and reflective notes on conversational items. Do you know where they grew up, where their career, where they went to college, their children? Do they have family in town? These are points of conversations that, if you've developed that rapport up front, then when it happens, okay, then the loss happens, you're not starting from scratch. And when bereaved clients come to your office, they have a barrier. I'm sure you've seen that. And if you can get the conversation started and continue the conversation and listen and ask, that's where this starts. Another key thing is to prepare, is create the environment. You need to create an environment that is safe for bereaved clients. And, I've been on the other side of the desk. There shouldn't be a desk in between us. You might not want to meet the first time in your office. Have that first phone call conversation sort of rehearsed. Know what to say. Okay. For the service, you should have a script of what you're going to say. Something like, I am so saddened to hear about Bill. I really will miss seeing him in the office. We had these great conversations about X, Y, and Z. And you tell a story. All of these things can be prepared up front, because this happens. I mean, it's like a car. You have to do the maintenance and prepare up front before it breaks. So I would go back to knowing your current clients, take great notes and reflective notes so you can connect and create that environment.
I really appreciate when you said that, my client and his wife. I get so incensed, and there's still advisors saying that they're both your clients. It's not your client and their wife. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't even it just didn't even make any sense to me that people would say that, but just even the that verbiage sets up that you don't have a relationship with her.
Mhm.
So let's say we get past the service, you've, given a sincerely heartfelt message, however that is delivered. What is it that a widow needs from their advisor right when they're starting, okay, so now you're dealing with financial things, or they're coming into your office, or going there, whatever it is. What do they actually need most from their advisor at the beginning?
The biggest thing they need is to connect emotionally. And I looked and looked at all of the research and started connecting the dots. Connecting emotionally, communication, interpersonal skills were top billing across the research. And widows want your financial advice. There was a study out of all of the influencers on widows' financial decisions, whether it's parents or children or friends or support groups. Financial advisors were like 30% above the field. So they clearly want financial advice and education. But what they really, really want is for you to meet them where they are. Communication skills, interpersonal skills, because we all could use a little body language and listening skills help. Women are very rapport style, and they're relational, and they read body language first. So if the advisor is very awkward or uncomfortable, they're going to see that first. So, brushing up on your body language, your listening skills, listen to understand, not fix. And you're listening to pull out information about what they value and what their purpose is going forward. And when you can start to layer those questions, you're starting to pull out, well, they want to send their children to school. They want to leave a legacy. They might want to open a business. They're not going to come out and say that right then. But you're asking. And another big thing with meeting with them as a widow and as a new widow is help them get organized. Many companies differ of what documents need to be done now, soon, and later, but you need to have a system. And to help in their overwhelm, I mean, literally when you're a widow, it's like a 1,000-piece puzzle has been set in your lap, and you don't even have the picture on the box. You don't even know what it looks like. You don't even know what you're building. So an advisor can help build these corner and side pieces of this puzzle. And pretty soon, as the conversations and meetings can, continue, widows start to see more of the picture in front of them. And it's not necessary to go right into all of the financial decisions right away. There's a process, and which processes are you going to share? Which things that their family members and themselves could do together, really creating an organized system and not to overwhelm her or him.
So what are mistakes you've seen advisors make, or the thing that someone has either said to you or you've heard of advisors saying to clients that is just awful or not the right thing to say? And then what things are really more supportive? I mean, you mentioned sharing a story and being authentic, but I think we want to also know, please don't do this.
Yeah. We want the nice and naughty list, basically. And number one, saying nothing ranks right up there in the Hall of Shame. You just have to say something. And, courage courage doesn't mean you're going to do it right. It's okay to do it wrong, but do something. And there's really 4 categories of what not to say. When people try to justify something and just say, you know, at least they didn't have to suffer and it's God's plan, that's not helpful. Or dismissive. You know, you're going to be fine. It's good that you're young and the kids are young. You'll meet somebody new. That's just painful. Even to say it now, it's painful to me. And these are things that are said. A lot of times people can come in and manipulate it and want to fix it. And, you know, they'll say things like, you know, your spouse wouldn't want you to have to go through all of this. And your spouse really would want you to move on. And then my all-time favorite is the takeover artist when they say, I know exactly how you feel. And they tell about all of their loss and grief. Those are the 4 categories that you really want to stay away from. Okay. They don't help. They don't connect. They're not meeting you and acknowledging that you're in pain. That's the number one thing. Acknowledging where they are, saying things, you know, like, I can't imagine what you're going through. I wish I could take the pain away. I will never, ever remember. I will never, ever forget what an impact your mom made in my life. I so appreciate John's effort in promoting something, you know, and you're saying their name. And, you know, some best practices there are, you want to acknowledge the pain, loss, or death. You definitely want to mirror their grief terms. If they're saying loss and passed away, you need to say that too. Okay. Use the deceased person's name. I never, ever, ever get tired of hearing somebody say my late husband's name. And it's been 15 years. Okay. We never tire of that. And then finally, tell something about them that will always stick with you. Grief is all over and it can't be scheduled. And it's nice to know that people are remembered, because as somebody who's gone through this type of grief, I've learned to walk alongside it. It will never be away from me. And I think not acknowledging, even if you put your foot in your mouth, that's okay. Even saying, I don't know what to say. It's better than not doing anything.
That's really helpful. I was thinking back about when my father passed away, which was 26 years ago. There was someone that he did business with. I don't even know who this person is. This lovely man came up and I was next to my mom and he shook our hands and looked us in the eye and told a story about how my dad was a man of his word. Mm-hmm. And I haven't thought about this in so long, but that really struck. It was such a beautiful thing to say. And I've since repeated to our kids, well, my father was a man of his word. And I think it was clarified by that beautiful person, whoever he was, who came up to us at the funeral. So it can have such a beautiful impact on people.
Yes.
So Kathi, there's probably advisors out there that know they want to support widows in terms of their practice. So what are ways that they can advocate for widows and maybe even market to them without being icky and opportunistic, right?
Yes. Yeah, we don't want to, chase down funeral directors and, read the obituaries and that seems very desperate and creepy, basically. Number one, you want to start saying, I want to work with clients experiencing grief. I want to work with clients experiencing widowhood. Okay. When you work with these clients, you're going to be one of the first people they call. when this happens. Okay. What an opportunity to not only make an impact, but inspire them rebuilding a life. This is an all-in type of thing. So we got to change our bio. We have to start bringing it up in casual conversations. This is what I do. This is whom I help, and this is whom I serve. And this is why. We all have, just like that wonderful story you told me about your father and being a man of his word. We all have a story that grounds us in something we want remembered and that legacy followed through. And so as an advisor, start finding that story where you can connect and tell other people why you do these things. Another key thing is, if you are going to be known for helping widows, you want to care about the things that they care about. Okay. You need to know about Social Security benefits, pensions, bereavement leaves, all of those things, in different contexts. When they have children going to college, that's a whole process, filling out the FAFSA and doing all those things. If you are working with a client approaching retirement, that's a whole other conversation. But really knowing about the struggles and reasons that widows have with not moving forward, and to really care about that and have some compassion. You should become the best resource that they have. In your community, there's grief resources, there's grief support groups, there's grief counselors. They need recommendations, and they don't want to have to go Google it. They want to come to you for some resources, and you can curate a list for them. And another thing that completely women experiencing widowhood need is referrals, community referrals. I don't know who to call for a plumber or somebody that an electrician or my car. It's really frightening. I kind of became a big fat fibber when I would have somebody to come to my house, because I didn't want to let them know that I was alone with children in the house, and you're really vulnerable to people taking advantage of you. So if I could call my advisor and say, hey, I need an electrician, they're going to come to the house, I don't know who to call and who to trust. All of those working parts are like the wheels of the bus falling off. And I'm telling you, that first year, that's when it happens. So when you can become known for that and a resource, and trust me, you will become a magnet. And women, we ask, right? Women ask referrals. You know what the best restaurant is, town is, where to get your haircut, all of those things, because we've asked. And women who are not even widows or related will refer you because they've heard of you, and you'll become a magnet for the people who truly need and want your help.
That makes so much sense, Kathi. I've noticed that you call them women who've experienced widowhood instead of labeling them widows. Talk a little bit about why you do that.
Well, I think when I first started thinking about my business and my consulting and really looking at, widow advisors, programs for widows, programs for divorce, in my gut, I knew this was not inclusive language. Okay. I knew that widowhood was gender neutral, and I knew that we're women first, we're men first, we're clients experiencing widowhood. I can't tell you how not fun it is to go into an office, a doctor's office, and having to check the box of widow. We live in a society where we don't have to check the boxes anymore. We don't need to be defined by what happened to us, because widowhood is where you are. It's not what you are or who you are. So I've started to really rework the language, because moving forward, I don't see myself as a widow anymore. And that's a key piece in moving forward and starting to rebuild your life and kind of a homecoming back to who you were before this happened to you. Yeah. So I think that's where it needs to be.
So helpful. So, Kathi, you have so many great resources. I know you have your PACE curriculum. You have you're doing more and more speaking and being out there to really support the financial services industry in this. If people want more resources, or where should they go? Where should we send them?
The best place to find me is on my website, kathybalasek.com. You can email me, Kathi@kathybalasek.com. We didn't need to overthink that one. And I am thrilled to answer questions with you, meet with you, train your team, do a webinar, share my course with you. The bottom line is, you stop learning, you stop growing. And I really think this is a place where you could really knock it out of the park for the people in your business and truly the people in your life to learn these skills.
100% agree. So for all of you out there watching this, listening to this, please follow up with Kathi. I'll put a link also in the show notes for this. Her information is just so important, even if it will happen with your clients, but it's going to happen in our lives. And we all want to be there for the people that we care about, their friends, family, and our clients as well. So Kathi, thank you so much for the work that you are doing in the world. I'm so grateful to have found and met you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ellen. I so appreciate, I believe we met on purpose, and I just really am grateful for knowing you, for you helping me so that I can send this message to more people. Much, much gratitude to you.
Thank you. My pleasure to bring this information out there, and thank you to all of you watching and listening. Again, my name is Ellen Rogin. You can find out more about me at ellenrogin.com. Please connect on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, wherever you do your thing. I'm there, and would love to connect with you, find out what other information will be helpful for our Extraordinary Advisor show. I have programs all the time for financial advisors, and you can find out more about that at my website. And the question to ponder today is, what are you going to do to be a better grief communicator? Remember, be great and create great every single day.